Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to day two of the 2025 conference for the National Association for Media Literacy Education, or as most of you know us, NAMLE. I'm Elizabeth Ortiz, co-chair of the conference for this year. And after yesterday, we are just feeling so energized. Thank you to everyone who was with us yesterday. Thanks to all of our presenters. It was just a fabulous day. We kicked off what I think was completely an incredible opening keynote. And we are excited for you, if you didn't get to see it yesterday, to rewatch it. I know I saw it and I'm going to be rewatching it. It was with 1 Minute Academy, and they really reframed the moment that we are in as one of opportunity, an opportunity to meet the moment, to find new avenues for media literacy education. After dozens of phenomenal breakout sessions, we closed out the day with a thought-provoking panel that reframed our thinking around how to think about digital competency in a world dictated by AI and algorithms. For all of us at NAMLE, this is a wonderful opportunity to put faces to the names we see in our inbox and in our feeds, to reconnect with old friends, and to welcome new members to our community. We believe the more people at the media literacy table, the better. Your presence today highlights the collaborative spirit that media education thrives on. As we dive into our second day, let's keep fostering that environment that values diverse perspectives, promotes critical thinking, and empowers the next generation to become informed media consumers and creators. Before we get started, I have a few quick housekeeping items and a few announcements. Thank you also all for checking in from all of your different spaces and places. We love to see where everybody is from, and I think it's great for everybody else to see that as well. So for those of you who are joining us for the first time today, you will recognize the conference staff by our colorful t-shirts. So please, anything that you need, our team has been working really since the close of last year's conference to build this experience, and we are happy to help in any way that we can during or after the conference. You just let us know. There are many, many ways that you can connect with us and access information about the conference. So you can download the NAMLE program book. It's actually pinned in the lobby chat. It's also available on the conference website. So however you want to get it, it's there for you. You can chat with conference staff in the lobby chat. You can just head on in there. You can follow the conference on socials by using the hashtag NAMLE25. Or if you have specific questions, and this is a really great way to get a hold of us quickly because we are monitoring this pretty frequently, you can email us at conference@namely.org. We're standing by. So if you need us, we've got you. So as you prepare for your day of sessions, let me remind you a little bit about the features of our conference platform. When you enter the event lobby, you can do a couple different things. You can update your profile. It'll help you more easily connect with other people. So if you just click on the three lines next to your profile image in the top right corner, you'll be able to access all of that. You can view the descriptions and speaker information for all of the sessions using the pink navigation links at the top of your lobby screen. And you can also create a personalized itinerary, which has been something I've really enjoyed doing. It's really hard to choose which session you're going to attend. So once you make that decision, you can add it to your itinerary, you can bookmark them, and then you can just follow that link to get to them. So it's a really great feature. All day. We will be sharing reminders, trivia questions, and raffle opportunities in the lobby chat. So we have some cool Namely swag, books, really all kinds of cool stuff. So please, make sure that you're checking in there, participate throughout the day. And we also have session surveys, and there's a post-conference survey and even more chances to win very cool Namely swag. So now I have a few exciting announcements before we bring on our first keynote of the day. So for some of you, you might be wondering about NAMLE's annual awards. They've typically been a part of this conference, but in celebration of the 11th annual U.S. Media Literacy Week in October, we've decided to honor those who've contributed so much to the field at that time. As you sit through sessions during the conference, we hope that you will be able to think about the educators, researchers, volunteers, community members, all those folks you've met so far, and consider nominating someone for our annual awards. They recognize the invaluable contributions across media literacy in teaching, service, scholarship, youth, action, and more. Nominations are open now and they close August 18th. This year, the winners will be honored on Thursday, October 30th, and it's going to be a virtual event. So everybody will be able to join us, which I think is really wonderful. So please save the link from the chat, which will be going up in just a second, or use the QR code to access that form. Our next announcement is a pet project the NAMLE staff has envisioned since we first designed our beloved media monsters during the pandemic. We are excited to this year create a media literacy resource showcase. As part of our Media Literacy Week this year, which is October 27th to the 31st, we are curating a showcase of classroom-ready, research-informed resources for middle and upper grades to demonstrate how media literacy can be meaningful embedded across academic subjects, right? So real things that are ready to go, ready for you, resources that our teachers can use, day one. This year's resource showcase will be highly scalable, standards-aligned tools and strategies that support the integration of cross-cultural media literacy in high school, whether in English, science, social studies, math, health, foreign language, or library settings. We're seeking submissions that are grounded in classroom experience or research, align with academic content standards or competencies, provide clear guidance for implementation by educators, support civic learning, critical thinking, or media creation, are adaptable for use at a school or district level. So I know that's a lot of info, but you can scan the code and find out more. You have a little over a month to submit what you'd like to, feature there. Selected resources then will be featured as on-demand demos during Media Literacy Week. And our focus really is helping educators across the country implement media literacy with confidence and coherence. If you're interested in applying, please scan the QR code. You can always go to our website after the conference as well if you forget to grab that today. Without further ado, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce this morning's keynote. We have talked for several days, several months, and several years for many of us about AI. And so this morning we are talking about finding human connection across alternative realities. In an era where misinformation and conspiracy theories are spreading rapidly across media and political landscapes, the ability to engage in respectful, meaningful dialogue with those who hold opposing beliefs has never been more critical. Journalist Zach Mack experienced this firsthand as he watched his father's worldview become increasingly influenced by conspiracy narratives. In response, Mack began documenting their conversations, exploring not just their content, but the emotional and intellectual challenges of confronting disinformation with really close relationships. In this conversation, he's going to be talking with Sean Rameswaram, and he's, as you probably know, the co-host of Vox's Today Explained, and they will explore how these conversations developed into Mac's limited plot podcast, Alternative Realities. So many of you have probably had a chance to listen, so this will be really exciting today to get to hear about some of the background. It offers insights into the tools and mindset that he employed to stay engaged, empathetic, and grounded in fact. At a time when journalism itself is under siege and the very notion of fact is contested, Mac's work serves as a compelling example of how storytelling can reclaim factual integrity and human connection. We are so thrilled to host this conversation, so please join me in welcoming Zach Mack and Sean Rameswaram to the stage.
Hello, thank you, Liz. Here we are. And we're here today to talk about the truth. So for people who haven't listened to Zach's show, Alternate Realities, yet, I thought we would introduce you to the show via a little true or false. So Zach, you ready for this?
I'm ready.
Here we go. Here we go. True or false, your dad believes the government can control the weather.
True. That is true. Well, just to be clear, that's what he believes, but that is actually false. But true that he believes that.
Thank you for clarifying. True or false, your dad believes Joe Biden or Joe Biden? No, what does he call him? What does he call
The
him?
Biden.
The Biden, sorry. Joe Biden is SNL. Your dad calls Joe Biden the Biden, which is maybe even funnier. Your dad believes the Biden has a bunch of body doubles and that we were never actually seeing the real Biden during his presidency.
True. That is what he believes.
True or false, your dad believed Barack Obama would be convicted of treason by the end of 2024.
True. Along with all the other top Democrats.
The Clintons,
Clinton's,
Nancy
Nancy Pelosi,
Pelosi,
Joe Biden. Unclear which Joe Biden, but
one of the many Bidens. True or false, you placed a series of bets with your father about these and other beliefs in a last-ditch attempt to bring him back to reality.
yeah. Well, yes, true. He proposed the bet, though. My dad challenged me to a $10,000 bet when we were endlessly arguing about all the conspiracies he believed. And as a last, like, as a, I feel like whenever two guys are debating, it either ends in a bet or a boxing match, right? And it basically came down to him challenging me to a $10,000 bet that all of these things would happen by the end of 2024. And
And we cannot place enough emphasis on the $10,000 of it
yes,
all. Uh, Final true or false question. You won the bet. You won $10,000, but ultimately failed to bring your father back to reality.
you really emphasize the word failed, but yeah, yes, true.
Which is a bit of a spoiler, I suppose, but people should still listen to the show. Okay, Zach Mack, tell us about this show you made. And for people who don't know, it was a season of NPR's Embedded, but also an episode of This American Life. You got the full hour, which for
Correct.
people like us who make audio and like narrative audio, getting the full hour is a trophy in and of itself. And I know from talking to you about this show, people told Ira they thought it was one of the best ever episodes of This American Life, which is
Correct.
like winning a Pulitzer or something like that.
It's pretty big. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And hopefully we'll win a Pulitzer. Who
Wow.
knows?
Wow, Flux. Stay humble, stay humble.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, sorry, what was the question?
Tell us about the show. Like,
Yeah.
why are there two shows? And how did you set out to make the show and why? All those things.
Yeah. So yeah, the very quick and dirty is yeah, my father and I, my father is like a right-wing Christian in a, but the rest of the family, my mother, sister, and I were much more like left-leaning and non-religious. And my dad's always been the odd man out, and he's just increasingly over the years gotten much further down the rabbit hole. And just the conspiracies have really been popping up. It started really ramping up around COVID, a lot of vaccine stuff, and we would just have these endless arguments, these circular arguments that would go nowhere, and we were getting fed up, and there was just a lot of friction happening within the family that was kind of based around my father's beliefs. And eventually, my dad, after arguing, he challenged me to a bet, for $10,000. And immediately when he challenged me to this bet, I knew it was a podcast story, right? Like you and I, we do this for a living. It's easy to spot a story. He gave me all the things that you could ask for. There was like clear stakes and family tension. There was a deadline. So it's like there was actually an ending. I think the problem with so many podcast series is like there's no real ending or resolution. And this one had a very clear ending, and it had good characters, and I said, okay, I'll agree to this bet. Would you be open to me interviewing you throughout the year as we track whether or not these events that you've predicted come true? And yeah, he was all for it, and the rest of the family was on board as well. Just because we didn't know any other way to reach him. We had sort of tried our best to reach him for so long, and this felt like a last ditch effort as our family was really in a tough spot. So that's what the show is about. And you'll just hear my father and I. It's not we're not arguing. We're having usually very civil conversations, often pretty humorous conversations. We like to keep it light. There is a lot of heaviness within it because of what's going on with the family, but you'll see it's not just like we're not at each other's throats throughout it. We're actually I think really attempting to understand each other.
Before we talk about like the themes of the show and the upshot of all of this and how people responded to it, which I want to get to, and then of course we're going to get to some audience questions, which I see we already have one. I want to ask you, you made a lot of different kinds of audio journalism, narrative stuff, chat show stuff, stuff about culture, stuff about tech, stuff about entertainment. How did you approach a show about your family, a very serious show about your family, despite our jokey introduction, that deals with a lot of painful stuff personally and for your mom and for your sister and even for your father? How did you approach that differently?
Uh,
Or
man,
did you not? Did you approach it the exact same way? I don't know.
I mean, I I just tried to like I knew it was really I knew I had to be very delicate with it. I tried to approach it with as much empathy as I could and just as much heart, and also with my family in mind, to try to protect them, to try to be honest, to get their honest take and put that into them. I think it's probably worth saying that no one in my family, my mom, sister, even my father, did not have an issue with the end product because they felt it was a fair portrayal of what was happening.
Yeah, wow.
But yeah, it was difficult. I've never reported on myself before, and usually I'm reporting on like tech or entertainment, pop culture stuff, things that feel usually a little lower stakes. Well, everything feels lower stakes when it's a little bit more removed from your life, right? So yeah, I don't know exactly what I did differently, but I took it very seriously.
That's smart. Empathy is a word you just used, and empathy is I think key
Yeah.
to what you did here in both versions of the show, which are similar, just like one's longer and has different
Yeah.
music. Um, some would say better music. I don't want to throw any shade, whatever. Um, how did you balance empathy with your father, with the skepticism and the pushback you needed to make a journalistic product for NPR and for This American Life?
Yeah, I think the empathy part, before the show, my father and I were just arguing. And once we started making the show, it allowed me to kind of put on my journalist hat and just be more patient with him. I had to interview him, and I didn't think, to interview him and to actually seek to understand him is different than arguing with him. And so I honestly think a little bit of making the show and just that role reversal, that suddenly I wasn't just his son, but I was interviewing him for a journalistic project. I think that helped me a lot in terms of just being able to be a little more patient. Um, yeah, I think that was a lot of it. Sorry, I'm like, what you asked a big question, so there was
Yeah,
a
yeah,
lot
I
in
think
there.
you answered it. It was about balancing empathy and yeah, your responsibilities as a journalist and as a truth teller and a truth seeker.
Yeah, yeah, I think that helped a lot. Just a little bit of the role reversal, and just checking out a lot of the other works on people who have sort of gone down the rabbit hole. There's plenty of books and documentaries and things written along the years, and so sort of like kind of studying those texts and starting to understand. My dad is not unique in his beliefs, right? I mean, that's one of the things about the the bet that he put forth is it's sort of like a greatest hits of right-wing fantasy, right? It's not, there's nothing on there that if you've been kind of plugged in over the last 10 years, that would surprise you. And I liked how ununique it was because he's not special. He's one of millions of people who have gotten swept up in these beliefs. And so it was helpful to kind of see how other people had approached that, and start to understand what brings someone to this place, to these beliefs.
Yeah. There's lots of heartbreak in the show. One of the most heartbreaking things, I think, for me personally, was this very last piece of tape that you just kind of have as a sort of outro to the whole series. It comes after the credits in episode 3, the final episode of the embedded version, and it's a voicemail from your father. And I didn't pull the tape so because I didn't want to mess it up on this conference. So I'm just going to read what he says. It goes, beep. Hey, Zach, just wanted to check in with you, see how you were doing. And then also just wanted to say we just come from different points of view. And I hope as we continue to talk here in 2025 and as you edit this program, you'll recognize that we just come from different viewpoints and we can still cohabitate, so to speak, even though we disagree on our worldviews. All right. Love you. Have a great day. Bye. Now, that struck me personally because I, like many other people, I think, who have written about this and thought about this, believe that the only way we get through this situation we're in, where people are going down these rabbit holes and becoming delusional about reality, is by talking to people, is by interacting with people. The only way we're
Yeah.
going to find common ground is by talking to people, interacting with people that we disagree with. However, your father fundamentally misunderstands the problem between you two. It's not one of different viewpoints. It's that he is disinforming, misinforming people around him, or he is being misinformed and disinformed, and simply believes that he has a different perspective. It's not a different perspective. He is detached from reality. And I think what you wanted to do was bring him back to reality a little bit. And as we discussed in our true and false, you kind of failed. Did you, I mean, I'm sorry, I don't want to stress fail too much. Do you think
Yeah,
you
you're fine.
succeeded at all? Like explain to people how he's going to pay you $10,000, but maybe still believes all the things that he got wrong.
Yeah. So what this happens all the time is you see it with doomsday cults, especially, they're like, hey, the world's gonna end on December 20th, 1999, and then that passes, and they're like, oh, well, we just got the timeline wrong. It's sort of this happens all the time with big, bold predictions, and these types of conspiracies, is they always get the timeline wrong, right? And it's not that they're actually wrong. It's a way for them to kind of be a little bit wrong, but still save face. And ultimately, that is what happened, is that he just got the timeline wrong. He still believes in all of these things. Um, yeah, I think, you know, when you really believe something, it doesn't feel like a choice, right? You think about the things that all of us believe and really hold near and dear. I think if someone just said, hey, that's wrong, believe something else tomorrow, like, you probably couldn't do it because it doesn't feel like a choice. And we really cling to our beliefs, especially when we feel like we're under attack. We really, you know, kind of close up and cling to it. And so I think that's part of what was going on for him. Um, yeah.
Did your dad doesn't change much from the beginning of the show to the end? Did
No. I think when we first started, when he first challenged me to the bet, I really went into it thinking, great, like, he's going to be wrong. And at the end, I can pull him back to reality. Like, I truly thought I could change his mind. And I think I also made the mistake of thinking that, well, my father just has the wrong information. He just has the wrong facts. And once I give him the correct information, he will be on his way. And that is sort of always how I thought about, you know, what's happening in our society. Is like, oh, they're just getting a hold of the wrong stuff. And we got to get them the right stuff. We
Mhm.
got to get them the stuff that's been vetted, and that's just not true, right? That's not It's not just a case of media literacy. And for so long, I was like, we just got to teach media literacy. And I know we're at a media literacy conference, but it's just more complicated than that. And you really have to dig into what's going on with people. But yeah, so I thought I could chip away at his beliefs. he didn't come away from them. I sort of look at him as like a more long-term project that if I continue to chip away from them like over years and years, at some point he's gonna see, oh, everything I've said, like nothing has come to pass. And I really think he did me a favor in setting out 10 things that were very measurable, right? There was a measurable yes, no, like did this happen or did this not happen? And then at the end they didn't happen. And so now it's like he's 0 for 10 on the scoreboard. And what isn't in the show is he challenged me to another bet this year
Wow.
with a new 10, and I accepted it just because I'm like, well, at the end of the year, the scoreboard will now read 0 for 20, and it's like, how long are we gonna do this, you know?
Now I just wonder if he has a gambling addiction to boot.
Yeah.
How did making the show change you? How did it change the way you might feel about the kinds of rabbit holes people like your father are going down? How did it make you feel about our information ecosystems? And maybe did your feelings towards what's out there change?
I think making the show was the most probably the most emotionally complicated and emotionally difficult thing I've ever done in my life. I saw someone in a comment somewhere, I think it was like on Spotify, it was like, easiest 10 grand he's ever made, you know? And I was
Mm.
like, no, 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 no. Hardest 10 grand I've
Yeah,
ever made. Like,
that person wasn't listening very
yeah,
carefully.
like there was nothing more torturing than making this show at times. But how did I change? I think it's all just so personal, you know, when I see bad faith actors kind of like spouting nonsense and I see misinformation and disinformation spreading, it it hits really close, you know? And I think for so many of us, we all know someone who has gotten kind of caught down fallen down these rabbit holes. We all have at least an uncle who's sharing weird links, right? Like,
Mm.
and it just feels so personal, and I really am seeing more and more, especially with this administration, how false information and just bad faith it are like just chipping away at so many things. It just chipping away at the very like definition of truth, or what we hold to be true is under attack.
Yeah. You mentioned one of the Spotify comments. I don't know if that was that a Spotify comment or a comment
Yeah, yeah, I
elsewhere.
think so.
Okay. I scanned through the comments on Spotify on the This American Life version, and they were overwhelmingly positive. And again, people in there saying this is the greatest episode of This American Life I've ever heard. But a lot of people sharing these like mini essays about their brother or their father or their uncle or their aunt or whatever. And so many people just said, same here, basically. Tell me about some of the responses that really struck a chord with you because there were a lot.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if you go on Reddit, if you go on Spotify comments, but also I got hundreds of DMs on my Instagram and hundreds of emails from total strangers. And of the hundreds of people, and probably over 500, 600 messages, just to me specifically, and I want to say at least 2/3 of them all said, I'm going through something similar. This really struck a chord with me because this is my mom, this is my brother, this is also my dad, and it again, just like my father's beliefs were like not unique or special. I think this story in a lot of ways is not unique or special, and that's why people felt it, because it's not just me. It's happening in millions of households across the country, and it is really that. I think that's why it's resonating, because it is such a common experience, unfortunately.
Did people want answers from you? Did they want advice from you? And if so, what did you tell them?
No, some people didn't want answers. I think honestly they just felt like their story was heard a little bit. The thing I heard over and over is, "Thank you. I feel less alone now." Like that's the thing that I feel less alone. Thank you for sharing this. or you gave me the courage to confront my family member, or I didn't have the courage to talk to my mom the way you were able to talk to your dad, and now I'm rethinking that strategy. And yeah, so a lot of, yeah, it was really touching but very tragic, you know.
I wonder, coming out of this as a journalist, you work for Vox Media. Did making this show, I mean, I see a lot of comments about media literacy in the
Yeah.
chat. Did making this show change how you thought about your work going forward? Your work that isn't necessarily about you or your family?
I think I'm still thinking through that. I definitely came out of this wanting to make more of a difference, and just I think really understanding after hearing the response and getting hundreds and hundreds of people saying they're going through something similar. It's like, well, what are we doing about this? How can we impact this? What is the answer? I'm still searching for that answer. I did come into this originally just, yeah, thinking, okay, we got to get people the right facts, and this is just a media literacy issue. And I do think those things are important, but the thing that we're missing and that I was missing was you have to understand why these beliefs are attractive to people. And for my father, for example, he grew up. His father was a chiropractor who lost his business very tragically because you know some like kind of fight with the government and like his board certification. And so he was embittered towards the medical institution and fell into a depression. And my father was, I think like 10 or 11 years old, looking at his father go through this like intense bout of depression, probably cursing, medical institutions. They held my father at a kindergarten for because he wasn't vaccinated and there was a new vaccine mandate. So, it's like my father grew up and was like sort of indoctrinated into an anti-vax household that was deeply against the medical institution. So there's no surprise that my father is like very weary of large institutions and vaccines, right? It's like, okay, that's where that hat comes from. And at some point during the pandemic, he came to believe, he's deeply religious. He came to believe in prophets, and that God is speaking through these modern day prophets that he found on, YouTube. And so he starts to believe them. And there's a lot of stops along the road that get people here. And you also have to understand, like, yeah, what is it doing for him? And I think my father is a lone Christian conservative in the liberal Bay Area, in amongst a family and group of friends that do not share his beliefs. So it sort of pushes him on the outside. And I think a lot of people, there's just a lot of appeals to conspiracies. Part of it is access to esoteric knowledge. Like, I know something that you guys don't know. It sort of uplifts me socially, right? And you see that sort of behavior everywhere, right? It's the same thing. Like, hype beasts are getting like rare Jordan sneakers in certain colorways that no one can get, and that's to get the same satisfaction of like, I got this, you guys can't get this. But for my dad, it's not sneakers. It's like, I know that Joe Biden has body doubles, and like, let me put you up on this information because you might not know Sean.
Classic, I did my own research stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
There's lots of people wondering, like they are like asking for an update, sort of. So I'm gonna jump to those questions now, and then I think in about 5 minutes we're gonna open this up to more
Oh yeah,
questions.
I got a couple questions for you, but yeah, for
Oh
sure.
yeah, that should. We'll try and do that too. Sure. Okay, so then quickly,
Yeah.
so we can get to everything. One, okay, let's just do like a big combo here. Did your dad actually pay you $10,000? What did he think of the show? What is
He
your
has not paid me $10,000 yet, but my parents are in the process of like, splitting up. So obviously the financial stuff is, a little complicated. He's moved out. He's doing okay. I think he is doing um well, as far as he still believes what he believes, but he's doing okay. Our relationship is okay. We continue to check in. I do think that the show was ultimately a net positive for our relationship, as
Hmm.
crazy as that might sound. And he was not. upset about the show. He didn't feel like it was unfair. He felt like, you know, there were some things he would have like framed or said differently. Um, he did say that he was surprised with how good a lot of his answers were.
Huh.
And you know, I do think my father, you know, what I heard over and over is like my father comes off very likable in the show. I remember doing one of my first read-throughs with Ira Glass from This American Life. Ira Glass stopped me in the middle of the read-through, which you're not really supposed to do. He interrupted the entire read-through and he's like, "Can I just say that I love your dad?" You know? And I do think in a lot of ways he comes off very well. He comes off very, you know, endearing. It's just a little bit tragic because of his beliefs and because of the way he's kind of allowed himself to be misinformed. But yeah, generally, you know, he's doing okay.
Okay, then this leads me to my last question for you, and then I'll let you ask me a couple if you want to.
Yeah.
And that this came from one of our conference members here. How do we accept people as they are, where they are, when their beliefs are actually doing harm to our communities? Because it sounds like, as you said, like one of the positive upshots, which I'm sure there aren't a huge number of from this series, from this work you did, is that it actually brought you and your father closer together.
Yeah. I think I have like two answers. There's sort of two things, and they are a little bit in contradiction, which is I would say you have to hold on to your disgust and you have to hold on to humanity. And let me explain what that means. Sean and I have known each other for a very long time, and we both love hip hop. And back in the day, our favorite rappers were like Kanye West and Drake, which is not a popular thing to say now. And obviously, Kanye has like really gone, we've watched this person really kind of like go down this like chaotic rabbit hole. And I remember sending you an article a few months ago, Sean, and this was like in the midst of Kanye. He's done this thing several times, which he would say a bunch of crazy Nazi stuff, and then he would come out and go, "Actually, I didn't mean that. I'm not a Nazi anymore. I love Jews." And then you know months later he would come back and go say a bunch of Nazi stuff, and then he would say, "Oh, actually, no, never mind." And there was this article written, and it just said, hold on to your disgust. Like with people who behave like this, don't let it off the hook. And I think about this with the Trump administration quite a bit. There's so much happening, right? And everything feels crazy and chaotic and upsetting and unprecedented is a word you hear a lot. Um, but it's really easy for this stuff to just quickly become normalized and feel normal. And you have to constantly remind yourself, this is not normal. This is not, and it's not okay. So I really think you have to hold on to your disgust. But simultaneously, you have to realize that these are people, and oftentimes they are well-meaning, and maybe they're misinformed, or oftentimes they're just scared, you know, like they're really scared because the world feels more chaotic and more unpredictable than it ever has, at least in my lifetime, right? We don't know what AI is going to do. Misinformation and disinformation is going crazy. It's like the rents are nuts. You can't buy a house. Like there's just all these things. It feels like everything's closing in on you, and it's easy to freak out and feel really afraid. And you know, people do strange things and behave. You know, when you really push a person, you get a reaction, and I think we're seeing a lot of reactions in a lot of different ways. And you, as nuts as the reactions might be, you do have to remember, like these are humans who are afraid. And I even think about that, you know, all the people buying all these alligator Alcatraz merch and like rooting on, you know, people being round up and mistreated, you know, like I do think some of these people who are behaving like in these ways that feel really inhumane and baffling, I do think at the end of the day, they're just afraid, and that they're people too, and they're trying to protect their families in the way that they know how, and they're being misled. So it's a little bit of, you have to hold both of those things simultaneously, and those two things are in conflict with each other.
Good answer. Okay, Zach Mack, you
Yes.
have questions for me? This isn't about me.
I have questions for you because you're the journalist here, right? Sean has an incredible daily news show that he's been making for 7 years, and he sees this thing in a much more macro level. I I just reported on my family and the wild things that my dad believed. But Sean is kind of seeing this from a lot of different angles and over a course of years. So I did I did want to know, like, is it harder now to know what's true than it was 7 years ago for you as a news reporter?
Is it hard to know what's true? Uh,
Yeah.
no. I think I think our audience might be changing, and the beliefs our audience is coming to our show with might be different than they were 7 years ago. I think when we launched our show, which is a Vox product, there was a lot of people who were like, "Oh, Vox! I know Ezra Klein, I know Matt Iglesias, I know Sarah Cliff. Like, I want to hear their daily news show." And so you're getting this audience that was like really like well informed, basically. People who listen to like, in-depth podcasts about white papers and listen to Ezra go on about, whatever it might be. Like Sarah Cliff doing in-depth reporting about healthcare and Ezra pontificating about psychedelics or whatever it might have been.
Yeah.
People who like wanted to learn more are really curious and like well-informed news consumers. And I think as the years have gone on, our show's been promoted by Spotify, and people on Spotify, they're listening to Joe Rogan, they're listening to Call Her Daddy, and then maybe they say like, "Oh, here's a news show called Today Explained." I don't know what Vox is, but Spotify is saying here's a news show, and then all of a sudden you've got like a very different type of news consumer, if you can even call them a news consumer at all. I guess you could
Right.
listen to our show. And Spotify recently like unlocked comments, and we shows that are competitor products to ours, like The Daily at the New York Times or Up First from NPR, they had their comments turned off, but we turned them on, just to like have this new forum with which we could engage with our audience. And what we saw in there was like a very different level of news literacy, of media literacy, and it was very surprising to us. And fun fact, we recently had to turn them off because we had just a number of incidents where like the audience was being like rather rude, insensitive about things that we thought were like not great for our show. Like we had a guest on who had a French accent, and the audience just like was just roasting her accent, her voice,
Okay.
which they do when someone has, vocal fry or something like that, and we
Yeah, it's
tolerate
always
it. But
women
this
too.
one, the guest actually went, it was a reporter, I think at the Financial Times, the Wall Street Journal. She went and read the comments and like emailed our producer like, "Wow, I had never heard that level of reaction to my accent before. I had no idea." And it kind of like it really, you could tell it hurt her feelings, and we just thought like this isn't really doing it for us anymore, so we turned it off. But what I saw in the months that we had those comments on was that like, wow, our audience has really shifted, and that's good. I think it's
Hmm.
ultimately good because we don't want to just be reaching people who are like, really well-established news consumers who like read the white papers and want to listen to like news podcasts all day. We want to be reaching people who are listening to Joe Rogan. Absolutely. Because Joe
Yeah.
Rogan isn't the best fact checker. And we have a really great fact checker on our show.
Yeah.
Um, so that's the biggest change. A long answer, but
The the other thing I'm just wondering, so we live in a world now where if you're on X, if you're on Instagram, TikTok, all of these social media platforms have gone to like an algorithmic feed, right? So you're no longer in complete control of what you're seeing, right? Or who you're following and what's being shown to you. Kind of anything can make it in there if they recommend it, right? It's stuff you don't follow. You might not even know this person. So the chance of your bubble being like penetrated by outside things is much greater, and we don't have control of the things we're seeing. I'm wondering how you think people how should people consume the news? Like, what would you recommend? What does an ideal news consumer look like, or a responsible news consumer look like to you?
yeah, it's a great question. I'm thinking back in February, I went to a concert in Toronto. I saw Destroyer, Canadian act, and Father John Misty, an American act. And this was like in the peak of like Trump and Elon and Doge and everyone just doing the most, where it was just like every 5 minutes there was something that you couldn't believe happening. depending on your politics, I guess. And maybe I'm showing my cards a little bit, but at one point, Father John Misty said, he was being very subtle. He was like, I know there's a lot going on right now, and I have some advice for you. Disassociate. And like he was kind of joking, maybe.
Yeah.
It got a laugh, but I'm sure there was some truth in it, like there is with most jokes. And I was
Yeah.
just like, man, I really think disassociation is the worst thing you can do right now if you really care about the future of the republic, the future of the world. So I think my advice in like, as briefly as I can put it, is to like engage as much as you can. As much as you can, as much as you can take, as much as you have time for. Like that's your responsibility in a democracy is to engage and to engage on multiple platforms, not to just engage. Don't just read the New York Times and The Economist and listen to NPR. Like try and listen to something that you don't like, try and talk to someone you disagree with at a baseball game or on a ferry. You know what it is? Like you just like that's our responsibility in a democracy. We all
Yeah.
care about this country. It's easy to be like, I don't know, no offense to Rosie O'Donnell. I don't know what's up with her and her life, but I think she moved to London or Scotland or Ireland. Ireland. I think she moved to Ireland. And she was like, I'm
Yeah.
done. I can't take anymore. Fair. Like that's her journey. Um, I think we need the people who care to stay and to try. And that's what we try to do on my show. I think that's what you try to do in your shows. I
Yeah.
think that's what Ira's trying to do. I think it's what a lot of these educators in this chat are trying to do, sharing resources. And I think that is the work in a democracy.
Yeah. Do you worry at all that people don't have the tools that, like, for example, if you said, "Hey, engage as much as possible," and then someone finds themselves in a space where misinformation or disinformation is running around, if they're, I don't know, if they're listening to Joe Rogan a little bit, and I guess, like, are you afraid that people don't have the tools, the media literacy tools to go, that sounds like bullshit, or let me look into this a little bit more.
Yes, I am very afraid of that. And I see everyone around me, I see really educated people around me asking ChatGPT all the answers to all their questions when they all know that ChatGPT will not necessarily give them an accurate answer. And I'm just like, why did you just
Yeah.
do that? What's a good
Right.
example? This just happened to me recently. Oh, a friend of mine was telling me that she was watching a TV show, but she didn't want to watch the second season. So she just asked ChatGPT what happens in the second season of the show. And again, this is a friend with like a 4-year education from a UC school. And I was like, Wikipedia would do that, right? Like you could just go to Wikipedia and look at like the season 2 summary of the second season or whatever.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, you're right. But I just asked ChatGPT because it's faster. And it's like it's one click faster, and that's enough for someone who literally is media literate. So then like what hope do we have for all those who aren't? That's just AI. One thing that gives me a little bit of hope is that there still seems to be some allure around fact checking. When we had the Spotify comments turned on, there were people who would just always be like, wow, who fact checked this show? Like, you guys need to hire a new fact checker. You guys need to fire your fact checker. And it was so funny because it's like, oh, like we did fact check this show. What we said was true. You disagree with it, so you tell us that we need to find a new fact checker. That's cute. However, like the fact that people still seem to place a premium on information that has been fact checked or seem to understand the concept of fact checking gives
Yeah.
me a little bit of hope that like no
Yeah.
matter what rabbit hole you're going down, there is still some sense that like, well, did you fact check that is a question you should be asking. There's enough media literacy that people understand that still. I hope it lasts.
That's great. I'm sort of a little bit surprised to hear that there is still that allure, and that, I mean, that's great. Yeah, I wish there was some sort of certification on stuff. Like, this
Mm,
has been fact checked. Like, there's some like little, blue check that's like in the corner of everything you read that has at least been vetted in some way.
yeah,
I wish there was some sort of certification.
there is. It just depends who's president, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
They could just turn that back on.
Anyways, we wanted to open it up to Q&A. Yeah.
Yeah, there's lots of people asking all sorts of questions in here, but they're kind of all over the place. But I think there's a lot of people asking for like suggestions on resources to to help students in this moment. And that's, I think, like one of my biggest concerns, curiosities. So I hope people can
Yeah.
share stuff in the chat. I'm not sure if Zach and I necessarily have all those things, but um, are there any questions for Zach about his show? About, oh, one thing I saw, Zach, that I think would be nice to ask is how is okay, let's ask this one first. Someone wants to know, there are a couple of questions about who your dad specifically is following, is
Mm-hmm.
being influenced by. Let's start there, and then I want to ask about your mom and your sister.
Yeah. So he was really into this woman named Julie Green, who is a part of the new I cannot say this word,
Apostolic.
Apostolic Reformation. So he was into that, but at some point he made a bet with my mom that um, he made a bet with my mom that like that he promptly lost, and part of the deal was that he couldn't watch Julie Green anymore for the end of the year. And we were like, oh great, this is gonna have like a really positive impact on him because he can't watch this person. And he just immediately found another person. Like I don't think it's one particular movement or set of beliefs. I think he's pulling it from all over the place. Yeah, there's not one person I could point at and go, that's the bad guy, get him. It's more of just the ecosystem that he is in, and the lack of tools he has to navigate it. I mean, my father's in his late 60s. He didn't grow up with the internet. He really does not understand technology, and it makes him very vulnerable in these spaces. So I think it's less about the exact person he's following and more about he doesn't have the tools to navigate it, right? There's always going to be bad actors. There's always going to be someone saying something false,
Yeah.
and for a myriad of different reasons. So it's really just about having those like the tools to kind of spot it.
Yep. And then is your dad surrounded by people who share his beliefs, or is it mostly a relationship that he has with people? Is it mostly relationships with people online?
So he's not someone who like engages in the online community.
Mm,
Like he's watching videos, but it's very one way. He's not like in the comments or like on social media. He's taking it in. Um, and then he has a Bible study group that he's really has become like a bit of like disinformation, misinformation cesspool that he
mm.
leads this small group. There's like, five or six of them. So I don't think his community is very big in terms of of who he gets to share this with and get this with, but uh, I know that he would love a following. Like he would love a following if it were up to him.
He'd
You
like to be a prophet himself.
yeah, of some sort, like some sort of leader. Yeah.
And with your fraying relationship, well, yours is seemingly improving maybe, but it sounds like from the show that like his relationship with your mom and your sister is really fraying. Does he have people in his life other than you who are challenging him in his beliefs?
I think that was one of the things that came up when I spoke to friends and people in his life. I don't think he's being challenged a whole lot. I think a lot of his friends, um, even his friends that are more on the right wing, there was a certain level of they would tolerate it, or there's some stuff they would kind of agree with, and then he would take it past the place and they would just kind of well, oh, okay, well, whatever. But it didn't sound like he was getting particularly challenged. And one of the things about my father is I don't think he has a lot of close friends. I don't think he has many close. I think he has a lot of people, he's very social. He has a lot of people he's like cool with,
Yeah.
but he doesn't have those really close friends that I think could set him aside and go, "Hey man, like what's going on?" But I don't know that he would respond to that, right? He didn't respond to that with his family either.
Yeah.
So unclear if that would work.
Okay, we're not going to leave it on that note because that's kind of sad.
Right, right.
But we are going to wrap up momentarily here. Before we go, I love to hit him with a dose of hope. We try not to end too many episodes of Today Explained on we're all gonna die.
Yeah.
So one thing that leaves me hopeful, and I think will be useful to this crowd here, is that people care. They still care. As easy as it would be to just tune out of the news, to just engage with entertainment and whatever it is, gaming, Call Her Daddy, MMA, whatever it might be. Even people like Joe Rogan and Theo Vaughn, who are in those spaces, they care. They care about Gaza. They care about cuts to Medicaid. They'll talk about
Right.
it on shows. Our audience is super engaged and they want to talk about, they want more shows about Gaza. They want more shows about cuts to Medicaid. They want more shows about immigration. And so media literacy might be having a rough go at the moment, but people still care about the most important stories in the world when they could totally, we've never given them more ways to tune out. That makes me hopeful. Zach, did anything about making this show or your experience with it leave you hopeful?
Yeah, well, to respond to you, I also think we're all getting more media savvy, right? Because we're consuming so much of it and we're seeing so much of it, and we're all so familiar with like the influencer who's like smiling in your face and seemingly presenting something really authentic, but then being like, but here's my promo code for this mug, you
Mm.
know? And so I think that veneer of someone seeming authentic is starting to chip away, and we're starting to kind of question things more and go, oh, like maybe we should be thinking critically about what this person is saying or selling me. And there's so many resources, and I do think I see some really intelligent stuff online, like really thoughtful breakdowns online. So I do think it's not all bad, right?
Yeah.
There are like things breaking through. Um, as far as making the show in terms of hope, what's hopeful? I mean, I still believe that I can sway my father a little bit. I
Oh,
think
yeah.
I still think I'm chipping away at him slowly. It's a long-term project. Um, but yeah, I think also just the overwhelming response, and all the people who wrote me, it just feels like I think my show, I'm hoping, left people with the feeling of like you don't have to give up. Like it seems dire, you don't have to give up, and you do have to hold on to your humanity. Like hold the line, hold on to truth. But yeah, there is a humanity there that we're all trying to get to, and I do think a lot of us ultimately want a lot of the same things, and just a lot of people are misled or afraid.
Mm. Okay, so watch out for Alternate Reality Season 2. Zach Mack, thank you so much. What a pleasure. Thank you for the work.
Thank you for having me, Sean, or thank you for joining me. Actually, I looped you in on this, so I appreciate you doing this.
My pleasure. Thank you,
And
everyone.
thanks everybody for listening. I really appreciate all the comments, everything. You can hit us up on social media or email or whatever. I know we didn't see everybody's questions.
Wow. Thank you both so much for a candid, important, and really touching conversation. We appreciate you being so open with us. Zach, your experience with your father is both unique, but felt so universal as we're reading through the comments and as you're reading through the comments online. So many of us could see pieces of ourselves in those conversations. And Sean, you really created a wonderful environment to explore some tough questions and remind us exactly why engagement matters. So thank you both for staying and trying, right? On day 2 of the NAMLE conference, we'll continue to ask and aim to answer the tough questions that surround media literacy education in 2025. And we'll proceed with hope and the knowledge that people still care, right? So we were listening, Sean and Zach.